Views and opinions of any of the guests of After Hours AM are not necessarily the views and opinions of After Hours AM, its hosts, its staff, or any of its affiliates.
Welcome to the After Hours program.
Are you ready?
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Now broadcasting live from the After Hours AM studio, Joel Sturgis.
And welcome to this edition of After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Tonight we have a great guest on tap. She's been a friend of mine for a long time and a friend of the show for a very long time. Miss Susan Masino is on tonight. And I know a lot of you have actually have requested Susan to come back on many times. And we kind of worked out some schedules, got some things going on. The Secrets of the Universe just dropped again. That's her hit book out there. That's her paranormal book, and I'm loving it. But also, Susan is a multifaceted author. As you know, she wrote the definitive AC/DC Let There Be Rock, AC/DC FAQ. She is all over the music landscape. We'll be touching on that in hour two, so don't worry about that. But in hour one, Susan, I'll let you talk about yourself here for a minute. Tell us who you are and how you doing.
Hey, Joel, my name is Susan Masino, and again, you and I have known each other for a long time.
Long time, yeah. It's been...
happy to be on your show.
Well, thank you.
I am an author, a rock and roll historian, and I also love the paranormal and have written a little bit about that, too.
You're kind of... What I like about you is you're not stuck in one genre of writing. You have a vast interest. You have a lot of different interests. And when you write, you could definitely tell you're writing from a place of passion. So when you do pick that subject matter, it is very compelling.
Well, thank you very much. And that's just me. You know, I really have to care about it.
Yeah.
To want to put a lot of research into it. But I love music. You know, I grew up on music. Yeah. And the blessing was I figured out a way to be in the business by writing about it.
Isn't that the best way to go about it, though, is I mean, you know, I don't want to get into music yet because we promised hour two, and I don't want to cheapen, shortchange anybody.
Right, yeah.
But really, we're going to touch on that because you have quite the career. It was not the normal path for you that you hear about a lot of rock and roll journalists. You kind of did it in some ways differently and more exciting than others.
Yes.
So we're going to be talking about that a little bit later, but we got to talk about Secrets of the Universe first. This book is great. The re-release just happened, the revision, and this is really it's a paranormal book that goes. It's all over the map, is what it is, and I love it because you'll get a book, and I love all the authors out there. We interview a ton of them, but a lot of times it's one subject matter, and that's great, and that's wonderful, and that's what that book is talking about. This particular book, if you're into ghosts, it's there. If you're into metaphysical, it's there. If you're into numerology, it's there. Universal laws, it's all there. What was the research like when you first set out to pen this book? That had been daunting?
Well, yes and no. The new edition of The Secrets of the Universe, which I love way more than the original that came out in 2013, I call it my primer to the paranormal, which is 7 subjects of things that I've always been fascinated with. Mm-hmm. It was really easy, actually, to research a lot of the ghost adventure stories. I actually did it, or I was there. So, I've experienced a lot of things, and I wanted to just put it all in one book and kind of hope that it makes people curious.
Do you tend to write what you live?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yeah, because, a lot of your research I've noticed is hands-on research because, I don't know, you did it. You lived through it or you've experienced it in some way.
Yes.
Is that what moves you to write about it then? Because, instead of just doing research on the internet, you have that unique perspective of not only doing the research but also living it, and it almost becomes very personal.
Oh yeah, no, I've always kind of been that way about writing in general because when I first started writing, I decided I was only going to write about positive things and not be a critic.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love to, especially the stories that I tell. Everybody teases me that I have a billion stories, but I love a good story.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that somebody would actually like something that I wrote and got something from it. That's a dream for me, really.
Now, The Secrets of the Universe, the first time it came out in 2013, it was a masterpiece in my opinion. I loved it. We even talked about length, that how much I enjoyed it. It was a breath of fresh air. How did you improve on it? I mean, it already seemed really well done to begin with. That had to have been tough.
Well, it's funny because when I was writing the book in the first place, before I released the edition in 2013, I put a lot of things, more personal things, and a little more lighthearted parts toward the end of it, after the ghost stories, of course. Mm-hmm. But I put it out in a way kind of quick because another deal came in, and I didn't have any more time with it, and things that were in the book, it's not like it wasn't good, it's just that there was things that I still wanted to say.
Sure.
So what I did was I went in and, tweaked the first 3 chapters, but the last 3, even the last chapter, is completely different than the other edition.
I noticed that. I noticed that reading it, because I even compared the two, because I was thinking, well, was this in the old one? I happen to have the other edition as well. And you're right, it's more fleshed out. Well,
yeah, and it was a better, like, a more uplifting message, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Now, there's so much in this book. It's jam-packed. And again, if you guys are listening, float on over to Amazon, order your copy right now, or better yet, go to SusanMasino.com, where you can get all of her books. You can order all of her books. You can get links to do that. Or, again, if you're an Amazon shopper, just go directly there, search out Secrets of the Universe. It'll pop right up there. You have your opportunity to buy it. I would suggest if you're interested at all in the paranormal, I like it also because it's smaller bites. It's more entry level in a lot of ways for dummies like me in the paranormal sometimes. Susan does a wonderful job of explaining things the way I think. And she writes the way she talks, and that's a wonderful thing.
Thank you. Yes, I really like to have people, because it's just me. It's like I don't want to confuse anybody, and it's a miracle I'm a writer in the first place, to be totally honest. I didn't even pay attention to any English classes in school, and I really wish I would have done that. But
it's but the best writers are often the accidental writer.
Well, I just always did. When I was a really little kid, I used to write poetry. That's what I started doing, just, expressing myself that way. But I do like, that's what I didn't want to do, was overwhelm anybody, because it is 7 different subjects. And it's, it's like a little hors d'oeuvre, a little platter. And, you can kind of check it out and play with your numbers even, do your own numbers and look up what that means. That was fun. It was really cool, how you can connect things with numbers. And and that goes along with, like, the synchronicity, which I talk about in the first chapter, of the whole universe is synchronized. And if you get into that flow, it's, you can manifest whatever you want.
Have you noticed synchronicities in your own life where you just sit back and go, whoa, that is so connected right there?
Oh, God. So often that I don't even know where to start on that. My whole life is like that, okay? Everything that's ever happened to me was just like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like being at the right place at the right time, talking to the right person.
Yeah, you've always had a knack for that, or at least the universe has always smiled upon you.
No, I've always been influenced, and I do, have I have a spirit guide, let's say. I wish I knew his name, because I feel kind of impolite, not telling, not saying his name, but he does yell at me at points when I don't listen to my intuition, and he's, that voice has helped me out a lot.
Would you say you're a touch mediumistic? I mean, do you have a little bit of ability maybe going on?
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't say that I can out and out read people, but I'm an empath. That's one thing that I have to work on, because I take on other people's emotions.
Sure.
Which is not good. Sometimes it really isn't good. But I'm definitely, I've had a lot of paranormal experiences in my life, and I've had prophetic dreams. I have all of that going on myself. So yeah, I would say.
Yeah, well, it all lends itself to that ability, and being an empath. That lots of people doing this radio show, we've had a show with a medium on or an empath on, we'll get email after email about their biggest hurdle is learning how to control that.
Exactly. Yes.
And any tips for the empath out there that is struggling? Because I know that you recognize it, you understand it. Do you have a better handle on it now than, let's just say, 20 years ago? way beyond 20 years ago. When I was a kid, as I said, I used to have people, angels, if you will, that came into my room at night and would talk to me, and I sat up one night and yelled at them to be quiet because I thought my parents would hear and be mad, I mean, this is, and that's when I lived up in the North Woods of Wisconsin, very sacred land up there. Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, so that's when things kind of, open the door for me. But it's just, it's an amazing and fascinating thing when you get into the synchronicity, when you notice like certain numbers, or you're thinking of something and all of a sudden it's right there in a magazine or something, or it comes up on the TV screen. That is telling you that you're in the flow.
Now, would you say, and I don't mean to cut you off at all because it just popped in my head, it would seem that all this then is linked. All this stuff is linked that you write about in one facet or another.
Oh, yeah, and getting back to, helping empaths out there, which I'm always learning every day, is I am a very big supporter of using your light, literally. We are an electrical vibration. Our soul, our consciousness, and you have seven chakras, which is a Sanskrit word for wheel of energy, or and so that attaches to your body. It helps control each part of like all your organs and everything. And for empaths, you have to remember to bring your white light down through your body, have it around yourself, and this is mentally, of course. Around your house, around your car, and keep your vibration strong, because it's harder especially picking up other people's negative energy.
Yeah.
That it tends to help you that way. It protects you.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
And for people that go ghost hunting and investigating and all of that, I learned the hard way that you need to protect yourself.
Exactly.
Things can happen.
And sometimes empaths, even me, I mean, I think we're all a little empathic that way. We're sensitive to others' feelings in some ways, some more than others. But like when you get around someone that's super negative, and then you almost take on that same negativity, it just makes you feel, ugh. How do you get rid of that? Ugh.
I pray. I ask for help. I believe, I always call in Archangel Michael when you really think you got something going on. And there are angels that come and help, but we have to ask for the help. We have spirit guides and guardian angels, but because of universal law and free will, they can't do things for us unless we ask for it.
So no interfering unless you actually consciously ask for the help.
Absolutely.
Well, that makes sense, because then it interferes with free will. If
yes,
they,
and that's a universal law.
Yeah, because you can't interfere with the free will. You got to let it happen. unless you do reach out and ask for that help. And I've been there several times where I've reached out and go, okay, I can't handle this. I need a little help.
Oh, God, I do that all the time.
And,
okay.
Yeah. But one thing I've got, it's weird in life, though, as you get older and wiser, or some of us get older and wiser. Some of us just get older and not wiser. I've been in that boat, too. But the more you understand what you need help with. And recognition when you need it can also be a hurdle, when you need that help.
Oh, yeah. No, I went for years not asking for help, or not really realizing that I could ask for help.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that, I would love everybody to know, that everybody deserves to have an incredible life, and you do have angels that will help you, and spirit guides that will help you. You just have to reach out and believe.
I couldn't agree more. It's just asking for that help. And sometimes it becomes a pride issue, too, where people don't want to ask for that help. But that's where the wisdom kicks in. And hopefully you've learned enough as on your journeys that, okay, I need help no matter what my pride is telling me. I need the help.
Oh, God, yeah. My spirit guides, I know they have probably been sick from laughing at me because, I do things my own way, let's put it that way. And so many times I'm sure they're just, like walking away.
They're laughing. They're I think all bars are at some point or another going, wow, I can't believe that.
Yeah, they shake their heads and just walk away and go, God, I don't know if I can do this anymore.
Gee, of all the people in the universe had to draw this number. Thanks. No.
Yeah. So it's, but it's, when you think of the vastness of the universe, it's a humbling thing to think that we're in, not that I'm crazy about the planet at the moment here, but that we're on a pretty great planet. We have a lot of blessings.
Yeah, we do.
Everything's here if we want them. Everything's here if we need them, but we're in, we've created these societies according to religion and money and all of that, I think that's why you're seeing all this truth come out.
Yeah.
Because, have you noticed that?
I have noticed that, whether it's UFOs, whether it's this or that, there is a lot of truth coming out these days. And, and in some instances, I won't lie to you, it's kind of overwhelming sometimes, all the truth that's coming out. Because
that will continue.
You believe one thing for a long time, or at least you want to believe this, and then the truth hits you in the face, and it's just truly a paradigm shift. And then you have to get used to that new normal. But I think we have I want to say we all have a better handle on it than we did before. I
think so. I think everyone is waking up more. We're ascending as a soul, I guess. We are ascending, and that's why more. I've become more psychic. As they say, the veils, between this world and that world are getting thinner and thinner, and all of these lies and deceit, we no longer, at least myself and a lot of people that I know, no longer want to tolerate that kind of vibration on this planet.
Well, sure, they know it's BS, and
awful.
Get the real truth out there and embrace it.
Well, and stand up.
Yeah,
stand up
exactly. Stand up for it.
That's it's important that we take care of each other, and it's getting more and more important every day. I don't want to get into politics right now, but you know what I mean. The state of the world is not good.
Well, you're absolutely correct, and again, this isn't a political show, but I'm also not afraid to veer into that direction. We are looking at things that are going on right now in this country that are very divisive. And it's not just in politics, but if you go on social media, oh my gosh, it is when it comes to that subject matter, I have never seen a more divisive subject in my life. And it's tearing friendships apart and some families apart and this and that. And I think what we need to do, and I'm going to go a soapbox for a minute, is just step back and realize, hey, we're all in this together.
Right, exactly.
we'll get out of this together because we got in this together. But fighting at the moment isn't going to help.
Well, war is so yesterday as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
We can send things to Mars, but we can't figure out anything better than bombing and shooting people.
Yeah, that seems to be the default answer to a lot of things, and that's such a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, it is. I mean, think about, here's a fun thought. If you were, say, an alien who was, cruising in, would you want to stop for gas?
Oh,
here?
hell no. No way.
No, I would say, no, we got enough to keep going. Come on.
Yeah.
No, I don't want to go down there.
They don't hesitate to shoot their own. Why would they stop and not shoot me? That's what I'd be thinking.
Oh, well, the UFO thing, it's funny when I talk to people that don't believe in it at all.
Mm-hmm.
At all. And I'm just thinking, okay then. That's their right to not be interested, let's say, or open to possibilities.
Yeah.
But I think it's so obvious, it's obvious that aliens have been visiting this planet for centuries, millennia,
Even the government's coming out now, especially the Navy, talking about it way more openly than they have been. I mean, they now realize the genie is out of the bottle. And they can either get ahead of it and talk about it, or they can keep saying there's nothing to see here when clearly there is a lot to see here. You
could say that.
Yeah, because forever it was you didn't see anything, it was a weather balloon. Nope, weather balloon. My gosh, more weather balloons have been shot down or been seen than any other thing. I'm surprised our skies aren't clouded with them at this rate.
Oh, yeah.
Weather balloons.
Lots of weather balloons. It's so funny, though, because more, as we said, more and more things are coming out in the open. Mm-hmm. And that's because people are seeing things and finally questioning, hey, wait a minute. I just saw, a craft that made no noise the size of 4 football fields hanging over the top of the buildings over there. And, well, that's just got to be something we should be thinking about.
we might want to, at least ponder the fact that we're not alone for a minute.
Well, exactly. Okay, but it's just, it's very interesting because I think we will see disclosure in the next few years because of, again, all the people that are already seeing things and witnessing things. You're going to love this. There was a commercial. I'm down in Savannah, Georgia, and there was a commercial on TV about a year ago, and I cannot tell you the product they were advertising, but they had a little gray alien cartoon character that starts the pitch, and he looks at the camera and he goes, "Oh, you didn't think we were real, duh." And I could not believe it. I kept seeing that commercial and thinking, wow, it's funny. Of course, they pulled it, and I haven't seen it since. But there's all these little ways of that the government, if you will, or the media, they all keep certain things, because they don't think we can handle it.
Well, that's what they say. We can't handle it. You can't handle the truth. No, the thing of it is, in my opinion, it all comes down to power. So, if the aliens landed tomorrow and they have the ultimate weapons or the ultimate technology, not even weapons, just technology, are you going to, and they show that, hey, we've cured this, we've cured that, this is not a problem for us, are you going to listen to the government's lied to you for the last 200 years, or are you going to go with the alien? I'm going to go with the alien, Susan. Every time.
Me up, Scotty. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Because at that point, what happens, though, in my opinion, is they lose power. And that seems to be the only thing that matters anymore in that arena is the power they can hold over us.
Right.
But keep telling us that there's nothing going on. I guess when that video was leaked from the Pentagon with that UFO, and it was so clear it was a UFO with those fighter pilots going, oh, this is kind of like a UFO and stuff, they kind of knew they had a problem on their hands.
Oh, definitely. And that it's just going to keep happening more and more.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of excited for it. I mean, I think that as you said, power. That's the real the root of the secrecy. Is that some countries, especially Russia, has more alien technology than we do.
I believe that. Yeah, I've heard that many times before.
Oh yeah, they were on it.
Yeah.
Well, I can't say before us because I don't know what happened in their country before 47 when we had Roswell.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because after we used the nuclear bombs in Japan, that's when the other guys started showing up.
I was just talking to somebody about that. John D'Souza and I were talking, and he'd mentioned that he had said, aliens didn't start. I mean, obviously there were still Foo Fighters in World War II, and there were some aliens. There were some sightings of craft, but boy, did it really ramp up after the Nagasaki and Hiroshima incident.
Well, and what I've read is that nuclear, that's why I'm not afraid of that happening again, because that explosion reverberates through dimensions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's why they won't allow it. You've probably heard the story, and I can't tell you the year or the place. It was in the States somewhere at a nuclear military base that had nuclear warheads. And they had some UFO sightings that night or whatever, but the place shut down for an hour without them doing anything.
Oh, I've heard that. I want to say it was either Montana or South Dakota. I know one of the listeners will correct me, but you're right.
Yeah, it was.
They had that go on.
Yeah, the power was just that everything done shut down for like an hour.
Yeah,
and then it all came back up again. And to me, in alien speak, that is, you might think that you can use these little toys, but you're not going to be able to.
No, I think in a lot of ways, when we discovered the bomb, as in the nuclear bomb,
mm-hmm.
It was like the caveman discovered fire for the first time, and they're worried they're going to burn down the block.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, it's horrible. Horrible.
Yeah. We better keep an eye on these kids now, because they got this going on. So it makes complete sense why they would be more interested, since we showed not only that we have the ability for total destruction, but we're so willing to use it on each other.
Well, yeah, that's the sad part. But I believe the Earth plane, the third, the three dimensions that we live in, is literally a school, mm-hmm. and you don't learn things unless sometimes it's hard or sometimes it hurts, or even if it sucks, you don't learn things.
Yeah. Sometimes the best lessons come from hard knocks.
Exactly,
mm-hmm.
and that's where we're at. Some days I always like to say, I know if the universe, I would like the universe to warn me when it decides that a day it's going to play dodgeball.
Yeah, that'd be great. A little,
wouldn't that be nice?
A little warning going on, just to kind of let you know what's going on.
Get a little text on your phone, like, don't get out of bed today.
Yeah,
You'll understand later.
Yeah, just stay home. Just hang out at home. Watch Netflix. Don't come out.
Exactly.
Just,
stay on the couch. You're fine.
Yeah, you're not going to like what you find outside. That whole thing.
Exactly.
So, I'm looking at this, and one thing that's always fascinated me, and we've talked several times, of course, about this, is numerology.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about numbers? And myself, I notice certain numbers coming up over and over and over in my life. You look at the clock, it'll be that number, right? Or this or that. Is that the universe trying to tell you something? Is there a message I'm missing?
Oh, yeah. No, there's a great book, an angel book of numbers that goes from 1 to 999, and it gives you the meaning of each number, but there's only, 0 through 9, and then everything is a combination after that. So everything breaks down, and everything is numerical, and when you think about it, the Akashic Records,
mm-hmm.
The Library of God, if you will. A lot of people have a lot of different explanations for what it is, but I mean, duh. If it wasn't numerical, how are you going to keep track of anything?
Well, sure, yeah. How would you know what chapter to flip to?
I mean, come on. We're talking billions of souls here. I got a lot of file folders, so everything's numerical. And when you break it down, it's fascinating. It really is. And when you see numbers over and over again, you can look that up. And I see like 222 a lot. And that's a great number. A lot of them are great. I mean, they all mean something.
Yeah.
And it's, again, if you're noticing those things, that to me is the way the universe shows you that you're in the flow.
Okay, so different numbers obviously correspond to different things. But it seems that some of us, like you're 222, I'm sevens. A lot of sevens come up in my life. Every time I turn around, there's a 7. I look at the clock, it's a 7. I do this, it comes out to be a 7. So we kind of have that number. Would that number be kind of like a harbinger well, not harbinger, but a guide, if you will, if we were to just understand what that number is trying to tell us?
I think in a way, because number is the number of love. It's a very powerful number. And it's just, like the more, it's not a bad thing. Okay, if it's 666, it is a bad thing.
Well, that is
right?
true. That would not be the number I'd want coming up.
So I'm going to put that out there right now, just for anybody that's wondering. But no, a 7 they all have meanings behind them, and they all have patterns too, which is amazing. Like in our lives, every 9 years, you have 0 is the God number. It's a never-ending circle, and you go all the way up to 9, which is the number of completion, and then everything starts over from there. So what's fascinating in your life is from the time you were born to you were 9 is a set. It's your youth, so to speak. But everything happens in 9s, and if you look back, it's really fun to look back and make a chart out. But 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, and write down what happened to you at that age, because it will be something that changed the course of something.
That makes sense. That it also gives, it's kind of like a history lesson as well as a future telling, so you can think back at this age this happened, and then you look back and it does change. That is a pivotal moment in your life. You just didn't realize at the time.
Well, especially 27. I mean, look at all the people that have passed that were famous at 27.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, but it's not, I moved to New York City when I was 27, so it's not always bad.
No.
But it's definitely the beginning of something new, because you're at the end of a cycle. And what's really fun, I'm going to try to explain this. You take a sheet of paper, and you write 1 to 9 vertically down the side of it.
Okay.
And then go over and do the next 9 years and the next 9 years all the way up to your age.
All right. Okay.
And then draw a line underneath each set of numbers. And what you'll see, if not everybody knows what happened when they were 1 or when they were born, but maybe like where they were born or the circumstance of what what was happening when they were born, they could write something in there. Or like 9, I got a horse for Christmas or my birthday or something, and then 18, it repeats itself at a higher level, and at 18, it's crazy weird. But I'm gonna try
that. I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, you have to literally take pieces of paper and tape them together to go, because I've been around for a while, so it takes me a few sheets. But
well, I wouldn't say.
Seriously.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I'm creeping up there too, so I'm gonna need a notebook.
Well, but it's fascinating that numbers can actually tell you. Yeah. Like right now, 2020 is the higher level of 2011.
Okay.
So what happened to you in 2011 is going to repeat itself.
So it because again, then it all starts again after that 9. Okay. Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So then that last. Okay, I'll wrap my head around this because boy, that's blowing my mind right now. That it recycles itself after 9. It's a new beginning. Okay.
Exactly, and if you do the graph of going, all the way across horizontally, you will see that some of the same things, like major things, happened 9 years later, and then 9 years later, and then it's fascinating. I'll take a picture of the one that I have because, like I said, you have to tape pages together
so
you can draw out the graph. But every 9 years, something major has happened for me in my life, and so number 7's a great number to be seeing. I like 7.
Yeah, but you're right about 9. So now I think about it, you're absolutely. It does seem like everything. Now I'm looking back at my life. It's like a 9-year cycle of things, and so I'm gonna have to look back in that deeper and try exactly what you're talking about. See what I come with myself. What's going on? That is a cool thing to give that a whirl, and I'd like to hear from the listeners too. When you guys try it, let me know how it works out for you guys, because that's just amazing stuff right there.
It is. It's very fascinating when you see it repeat itself. Even though I had a son and a daughter, 18 years apart of each other.
So there's your 9 again, yeah.
Exactly. They're on the that one, the same column as you go across. New mother at this age, and then 18 years later, new mother. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, that's weird.
But it's fairly predictable now that you break it down like that. Somewhat predictable too.
Oh yeah.
But doesn't mean that
a little bit your future.
Yeah, so maybe you can use that predictability to somewhat see into the future a little bit. At least have a better idea of planning for the future.
Exactly, or not being afraid that a big change is coming.
Well, yeah, because life is nothing but change in a lot of ways, good or bad, as we move forward. But then again, it's going to reset itself and come back around. So. That is interesting, and I know the first time we ever had you on the show, and I was looking back at our notes while we're talking, realize that's like 5-6 years ago now. The first time we had you on the show was actually to talk about past lives.
Oh,
because
yes,
your son was on a television show, Ghost in My Child. You were on that television show right along with him, and that's how we ended up meeting to the producer of that TV show. And so past lives is in your book. I'd love for you to touch on that. Well, I know you're a believer because you saw it firsthand. Yeah.
I always knew. I had memories of being here before when I was a child. So I knew, no one told me, and I didn't know what reincarnation was, but I knew I had been here before. It was almost, actually, it was annoying to me when I was a kid, because I didn't really want to come back to this planet anyway, and I had a very interesting family. So, but with my son, when this started happening to him, I luckily didn't try to suppress it or, make him, stop, he was obsessing on it. What happened with my 4-year-old when he was with a babysitter one night, she let him watch the end of the Titanic. Which it's an interesting choice, but I wasn't real happy about it. But the very next day, my son got up, 4 years old, and starts drawing pictures of the Titanic like there's no tomorrow.
What was your reaction to that, though? Coming down, seeing him drawing those pictures, did you assume it was all linked to the movie he'd watched, maybe having a fascination with ships in the beginning?
I think the movie triggered the past life memory.
That would make sense.
Yeah, definitely. It had to have. Because all of a sudden he started drawing, because he loved to draw. He had like an art desk with all his supplies, and all of a sudden he was drawing, and not from pictures, not from looking at a book. He just started drawing the Titanic every day. For the first 2 weeks, he probably had drawn 50 pictures of the Titanic.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. And we're not talking about like rudimentary drawings. They're detailed, basically blueprints in a lot of ways, if I remember correctly. I mean, he really had an intimate knowledge that only someone that was either on the ship or had a hand in building the ship would know.
Right. Oh, yeah. I think that he did help build the ship because it was, it's traumatic, of course, watching that movie at the end. I saw it in the theater with my daughter, and we cried so hard, like my shirt was wet when I left the theater. I mean, it was just horrible. And and that's not what he talked about. He was sad. He was very overcome by the whole thing, but he kept telling me, Mama, Mama, it didn't have to happen.
And that's heartbreaking to hear a little child talking that way, though. Mama, Mama, it didn't have to happen. Did he blame himself in some regards, in some ways, when he talked about it?
I think so, because he used to wail. I mean, literally, like, throw himself over my lap and sob over the men in the boiler room because the doors were designed to shut in an emergency and they couldn't get out.
When did he ever lose that side? I mean, did he kind of outgrow remembering that, or does he still have those same feelings?
No, he had it for 2 years. It went all the way on for 2 years. Like, at that point you think this is never going to end.
Yeah.
And now that he's all grown up and everything, he always tells me, don't talk about it because...
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it wasn't me. No, that didn't happen to me. But no, it was a profound thing to see, horribly heartbreaking, because he remembered so much about the ship. He was so obsessed with it. We got this game that you could play, a CD-ROM game, and I couldn't play it. I'm not that smart, and it puts you on the ship, and you have to know your way around to solve the mystery to try to stop the sinking. Is what the the objective is. And we, because we got him books and toys and everything. And when this came out, we got that too. And it took my daughter coming home for a holiday to work on the game with him because I didn't know how to maneuver it.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And he started telling her, no, don't go that way. Go to the port side. If you go that way, you're going to end up on the bridge. Just all these things. And after a few, not even an hour of this, she pulled me over and she said, he knows his way around the ship.
That's amazing, though. I mean...
And I'm like, I said, I told you, I've been telling you that for months.
Yeah, but how does the whole thing work, though? How does reincarnation or past lives work? Is there a contract we sign before we get here saying this is my life, this is what I need to learn? I mean, what's the reason for coming back, I guess?
Well, okay, this is, and going back to being very simple, I look at it like if you look at the clock at 12 o'clock and that's where your soul is created, let's say, and for every minute that goes all the way up to an hour, could be 100 lifetimes, it could be 10,000 lifetimes, but the soul is created to be exactly like the source.
Okay.
And when we are put into, obviously, when we're put into this predicament, we don't behave properly. So
yeah.
So, and some people skip. I mean, some people do it in 4 lifetimes, and those are like probably the Dalai Lama or somebody. But we're here to learn.
Is there a point when you're done, or is it a reoccurring thing? Or
I hope so.
I really do. I was going to say, what's the end point then? Is that the point that we know everything and we can move on being a spiritual being? I mean,
I think when you get to the point where you really are at the same level as the source that created you, then you become part of the source.
Okay,
and that's beautiful.
That is beautiful. That is. It just seems like a lot of work.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I've had a hell of a lot of fun down here.
Well, yeah.
Got to say that. I mean, there are perks to being in a human body. I'm not going to lie.
There's a ton of perks, and I got to say, not everybody is as blessed as you are, or I am, or anyone else. Really, we're all blessed in our own way to be here, and no matter what your life path is, it's all about learning. I really believe that we're here to continue that education.
Correct, and to be, learn empathy, compassion, and helping others, because that's why we're here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes me sad about, like you said, what you're seeing on social media and stuff is we're here to take care of each other, and I don't care what label you want to put it on.
Yeah.
Everybody deserves food and water and shelter and an education that doesn't cost, like if you bought a Rolls Royce, that's what a bachelor's degree costs now.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It is. It is. And it's sad because now we come full circle to that power and greed. Is really that's the root of it again, is power and money. That's why it is what it is, because somebody sets the prices out there. And that is what we end up paying. But these kids now, and again, not to get too political or get too muddled down in something that isn't, away from the book here for a minute, they get so crippled with debt right out of the gate that they really have no chance. Because the average person leaving $80,000, $90,000 in debt for a bachelor's degree, that's insanity.
Yeah. That's what's happening.
I went to broadcasting school, and that was like, what, $2,600 back then for a 2-year course. And that was it. And that was considered advanced back then. But now it's that same course would be like $12,000, $14,000 easy.
Oh yeah, no, that's why I'm excited about all the things that are happening, all these truths coming out, veils getting thin, is that we're getting more balance. We're going to get more back in balance.
Well, that's what we desperately need, is balance.
Yeah, because we should be here to take care of each other and all enjoy the planet, because it's a beautiful planet.
Yeah, it truly is. It really is. For all its faults, it is a beautiful place to be. And I know I'd be remiss if we didn't bring up some ghost stories. I know you got a couple really good ones. Oh. What's your favorite ghost story to tell that you've lived? Because I know you've lived quite a few of them.
Oh, well, I don't, I think, and it ties to the Titanic. I don't want to, if you don't want me to go back into that, but it's something that happened to me.
You go wherever you want to.
Well, I've grown up my whole life wanting to see an apparition. That to me would be the ultimate, to see somebody that is there and then they're not. I just like, yes, proof. There's proof.
Yeah.
And we took, after 2 years, we took our son to the exhibit of the Titanic in Chicago in the year 2000. And when we went and saw a boiler, from the boiler room of all places, it was surrounded with mirrors. It was had a light on it, and there was curtains, and there's a lot of people around us, and so we were moving slowly. And I looked down one set of mirrors, and the mirrors made it look like there's a bunch of them. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okay, so I look to the right, I see that. I look to the left, I see that too, except I see a life-size oil painting of a man on the wall shoveling coal into a boiler. And I think to myself, boy, they went all out.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. I'm like, that's a classy, because remembering, of course, my son being so broken over the men in the boiler room. And as we got closer to this painting is what I saw, I looked up at this person, and he swiveled really quick and looked at me like I scared him.
So the painting or the figure moved?
Yes.
What was your reaction when you saw this thing that you thought was a prop?
A painting? Yeah. No, as soon as he moved, we didn't lock eyes because I closed mine. I was like, paintings don't move.
Yeah, one of those oh hell no moments.
Exactly. So when he looked at me, when his head turned and I went into I shut my eyes and opened them, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror, and there's no painting.
Whoa.
And I leaned over to my daughter and I said, "Did you just see?" And she was like, "A man." And we both saw a man. She saw him in a different way than I did.
Okay.
She saw him standing in a place that didn't look like there was a place to stand.
So
That's how she experienced him.
but you both saw the same apparition.
We did. Yeah, he had a hat on. He had suspenders, a white high neck collar shirt, big pants, like the baggy woolen pants.
Yeah.
And because I looked at it, it was a painting to me. I thought it was like, wow, this is, what a great, that was cool that they did that.
Yeah.
But what was really creepy is that when he looked to look at us, it looked like, we scared him by how fast he moved.
Real?
Like, who are you?
Did he give? Obviously, being empathic. Did he give off? Other than he actually was scared, I would imagine. He was startled that you were there.
Right. Like, who are you?
Yeah. What are you doing here? Why are you here? Do you believe? Obviously, you must think that he was one of the Titanic workers, right?
Oh, had to be. Had to be. And, could have been my son. I don't know. The people, when we did the show, everybody, because of the way he knew how the ship was built, what it was made of, who was in control of the building of it. One thing, he came home one day with the ship with only 3 out of 4 smokestacks with smoke coming out. And I asked him, I said, oh, didn't you have time to finish this? And he looked at me like I was just an idiot. And at this point, I should know everything, right?
Yeah.
And he looks at me and he goes, Mama, it's a dummy stack. They didn't use it. It was just for show.
And how would he know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
You know what
Nobody,
I mean? No one knew that. Not
they
until...
They didn't have it out yet.
Yeah.
They did all these documentaries, and now they have all that stuff. But no, he knew all this stuff.
Yeah.
So when I saw that apparition, afterwards, my son had an extremely horrible nightmare of the ship actually sinking, and then his obsession went away.
It was almost like it came to a crescendo, is what you're saying. He had to live out the tragedy.
Yes.
And then once that happened, it kind of came full circle, and it just left as soon as it came.
Yeah, he just let it go.
Wow.
It was so great. I noticed, he went for a few days without saying anything about the Titanic, and I thought, And then it got to be a week, and then all of a sudden it was 2 weeks, and my husband and I both were like, he's not talking about it anymore.
Were you sick of hearing about the Titanic at this point anyway? Like, oh, just give it up, kid.
Oh, well, no, I was more heartbroken over it.
Yeah.
It was very sad.
Yeah.
All of his memories were very sad.
And that's the thing that get me too, because it comes from a place of mourning rather than a place of fascination.
Right, exactly. And when he was in grade school, he made up a postcard that he sent from the Titanic, and it's got a sun in the sky, and the ship is in the water, and he said, we're having a good day.
Wow.
Not like we're having a good voyage, because, they weren't out long before they hit the iceberg and sank.
Yeah.
But one of it, he was a big fan of the Colbert Report, with Stephen Colbert.
Yeah.
And months, years later after that show came out, Stephen was making fun of the show. And he used one of my son's paintings of the Titanic sinking in his monologue.
That is cool.
That's the coolest thing ever, really.
Yeah, so it was a shout-out from Stephen Colbert to the show.
His hero. He loved him.
Yeah, I bet she was over the moon about that one.
Oh, yeah. We have a picture of it. It was awesome.
Yeah. I know.
But past lives, yes. Very, but ghost stories, that would be the most profound with a full body apparition.
That would freak me out a little bit, to be honest with you. It would give me pause.
Well, the interesting thing, and I have to thank the universe, if this would have been like in the hallway in my house at night, not funny, very scary, terrifying. I was in a controlled place where there was a lot of people around me.
Yeah.
And it was like almost like just really seeing something that you always believed in but could never prove it.
Well, you bring up a good point because it's a lot better to have it there than wake up at 2 in the morning, look at the end of the bed, and see a guy staring at you.
No, see, that's exactly what I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I love ghosts and all that stuff, but not in the bedroom at the end of the bed. No.
There's a lot of places I'd like to see one, but not there. You're correct.
Nope, not in the house.
There's nothing more vulnerable than when you're in your bed in the middle of the night. And that has happened to me, though, where I've looked at the end of the bed and, okay, who are you and why are you staring at me?
Oh, my goodness. Did it wake you up? Or
I woke up for whatever reason. I went to a hotel that's haunted in my state, and I came back, and of course, there was a time where I wasn't the most diligent in protecting myself on these investigations. Mm-hmm. And I came back, and I didn't feel any different, and it was about 3 days later, I saw something at the end of the bed. I had to take a double take look. It was more of a shadow figure. And I thought I was imagining things until my wife brought it up, too, saying that she saw things in her room. Ew. So it was at that point where I realized that something was actually going on. It wasn't just my imagination. Mm-hmm. But I remember looking at this thing and it looking at me, and it wasn't a happy camper, let's just put it that way. It wasn't there to stop it and say, hey, how you doing? It's been a long time. No, it was there because it was not very happy with me.
He was probably looking at you like, "What? Why are you in my bed?"
Yeah, right. What's your problem? What are you doing there?
Yeah,
get out of there.
What's going on here?
Yeah, exactly. So, when you see those moments, when you have those moments, there's two things that can happen, in my opinion. It scares the living heck out of you in the beginning, but then you start wondering what and why and how, and it just keeps and it also strengthens your belief in the afterlife.
Oh, yes. Yeah, there's too much evidence. It's really kind of funny for us to even say that it's not real because, I mean, how many ghosts do you have to see? How many pictures? How many video now of things that people, like they see a figure crossing the street while all the cars are driving right through it.
Yeah, all we need is one sighting to be real. That's it. That's all we need.
Well, there's a lot of them.
Exactly, and there's tons of them. There's tons of them that have proved that are not able to be explained of what's going on. So there's big body of evidence.
You got great TV shows now, Paranormal Caught on Camera, Paranormal 911, haunted hospitals with, policemen and nurses and doctors, telling their stories, and it's creepy.
And that's the thing. These people, in my opinion, because the witnesses and their credibility is a huge thing.
Right.
Why would a doctor or a police officer want to come out and say what they've seen and risk their careers and their reputations?
Oh, especially, like police officers. And when you hear some of their stories, ooh.
Yeah, right? I have all the respect in the world for people in uniform, our men and women that are protecting us every day, that are on our streets keeping us safe, but I would not want to walk in their shoes.
Oh, no. They have a very hard job, and when they see things, when you hear their stories, they're not kidding around.
No.
There's no reason for them, like you said, to go on the line and put their face out there. Speaking of, I live right down the road from the famous video of, have you ever seen the car that the police are chasing? And it's down here in Garden City, Georgia, not far from where I live. They were chasing a car one night, and the car does a big U-turn, and it literally looks like a skeleton behind the wheel.
Yes.
Like, not kidding you. And then they chase it down a dirt road, and it goes through a chain-link fence and disappears.
I remember seeing that and hearing about it.
Yeah, that happened right here.
That was a creepy story on its own, and I know and everybody that was involved with that, God, they swear up and down that was so real. That
it was.
That we saw what we saw, and I believe them because I did talk with one of the officers. We did a show on that one time. That came on under anonymity and talked about what he had seen. And man, up there, he says, you know what? I know it sounds fantastic. If it wasn't me seeing it, I wouldn't have believed it either. really, I wouldn't have, but this is really what happened.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you kind of get that BS detector being a radio. You know who's telling the tale and what's real and what's not, just from doing it a long time. This guy was absolutely 100% legit. He saw something he can't explain.
Well, and, Savannah alone, many places are called the most haunted. This is really haunted, and Savannah itself is literally built on top of bodies where they moved the gravestones but not the bodies.
Two cities I consider to be absolutely haunted, bonkers haunted, would be Savannah and New Orleans.
Yep.
Two places absolutely just off the wall haunted. We got to run to break. We come back. More Susan Masino. And while we're going to break, make sure you visit SusanMasino.com, pick up the books, buy the books. You're going to love them. There's a lot of good stuff. We're going to shift gears. We're going to Susan's rock and roll side next. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. Set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the Wacky Waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the Wacky Waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to After Hours AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Tonight we're talking with the multi-talented, multifaceted author, Susan Masino. Now, Susan, you had quite the life. We discussed in the first hour your paranormal side. But I know a lot of people know this about you as well, but you got a rock and roll side. How did a nice girl like you get involved with a dirty business like rock and roll?
Well, I was born into it. When I was born, my parents owned a ballroom on the Wisconsin River in Sauk City called the Riverview Ballroom. It actually has its own Facebook page now.
Oh, very cool.
Which is fantastic. But back in the day when they owned it, they had everybody from, the Dorsey brothers, Louis Armstrong, Gene Krupa. They all played there. And I could hear, we had a little apartment on the ground floor, so that would lull me to sleep at night, would be the band, because the walls were thin, and so that's kind of what started it, and they always had a jukebox, and then we had a hotel up north in Wisconsin where they had live bands every weekend, and I just fell in love with it. I love music, absolutely crazy about music. But I fell into writing about it much later in life. When I first started out, I was hanging out with people that were not just musicians, but, roadies, lighting guys, agents, promoters, and it made me realize that you don't have to be a performer to be part of the business.
Yeah, there's other things like covering it, and that you've done a lot. You wrote a couple books about a little band out there called AC/DC, and I know the story. Yeah, the little band that could. No, AC/DC, only one of the greatest bands to ever, take the stage. And the two books you have out there, and I know there's more coming out as you go, because it's just an ever evolving story with these guys. The story of AC/DC, Let There Be Rock, AC/DC FAQ, frequently asked questions, all that's left to know about the world's true rock and roll band. I know I've heard the story before, but there's a lot of people that haven't. How did you end up meeting AC/DC?
Well, again, I was just starting out in the business, and there was a local paper called the Mad City Music Sheet. Hello to Gary, if you're out there, and God bless Michael, who's no longer with us, but I wanted to write for their paper, so I would do anything, errands, chores, I wanted to be part of it. And I was driving past their little office in downtown Madison on an August afternoon in 1977, and my intuition said, pull over and see if you can get an assignment. Because, they didn't want to give me much because I was a girl. Okay, sure. I'm going to put that out there. I was up against a lot of odds.
It was still very much a man's world at that point, the rock and roll, covering rock and roll.
That was it. I mean, either you were a groupie or a fan, but you didn't work in the business.
Okay.
I didn't know, anybody. That there were other people, thank God, in other places, like New York and England, that were ladies that were doing the same, but I wasn't aware of them at the time. And so I stopped in the paper, and Gary Summers, actually, who you'll see him on the Antiques Roadshow. He actually is on that show. But he was one of the editors of the paper, and I walked in as he's hanging up the phone, and I just said, I want to know if you have anything you need me to do. And he says, well, I just got off the phone with Start 8, which is a big promoter out of Milwaukee. He said, they got a band coming downtown tonight to the Stone Hearth, and they need like a gopher, somebody to help the guy out from Start 8, and
sure.
there's no money in it, but you could probably get a friend in. And I said, okay, yeah. What time do they need me? And he's like, well, try to get down there by 4. And I started walking out, and I turned around, and I've seen a lot of bands at this point.
Yeah.
Especially at the Coliseum in Madison when I was in high school and stuff. They had huge bands every week, basically. So I had seen a lot of big bands, and as I walked out, I said, well, who is it? He says, I don't know, some band out of Australia called AC/DC. And I went, huh,
just to back up, the band at this point, when you were hearing about them, had they quite broken heavy into the United States yet, or were they still struggling to get a foothold in the American market?
Oh, they hadn't even started.
Oh, so they were new, like brand new.
Oh, brand new. No, I saw them on it would have been the 15th date, but the 14th time they played the United States for the first time was at the Stone Hearth. They had to cancel a gig in Texas because it was too far to drive to. You know, they were put on this grueling tour. They were riding around a station wagon. They had a 3-man crew with a 26-foot rider truck, and that was it. Or even a 16-foot. I don't even think it was that big.
It's hard to imagine this band, because I've been to an AC/DC show a time or two. And I mean, it is a big production. It is
now.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that band, AC/DC, being so tiny back in those days.
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, the most fun I had was not only getting to be as close as I was, but to see people in the audience that had never seen them before. That was my favorite.
I bet.
Because you would see people literally like they just were, they didn't know what to think. You know, especially the first time when you see Angus running. I thought something was wrong with him at first.
You thought he was touched, did you?
I did.
Strange.
He fell down and he started, you know, twirl around on his back, and I'm like, oh, that's got to hurt. I mean, I'm just, you know, I'm worried. I'm like, what's going on with this guy? So, but I got to see him, you know, more than once in a bar.
So
and
you saw them. You saw the antics that of Angus Young, which are legendary now. I mean, we kind of take it for granted now because, well, that's Angus Young. That's what he does. He's a showman. But back then, there wasn't too much of that going on, that kind of showmanship.
Not really. I mean, you had, you know, like the Who, you know, breaking their equipment, that kind of thing. You know, and Jimi Hendrix, he burned his guitar, but the antics on stage between Angus and Bon, and especially Angus himself, you know, yeah, he does the Tuckberry Duck Walk, but he kind of took it to another level, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
he's got a swagger about him.
Well, in Bon, I mean, like I said, there will never be anyone ever again as cool as Bon.
What was he like, though, in person? I mean, we only saw him, like me as a fan, seeing what was put out there. But what was he like to interact with as a human being?
Oh, God, he was so funny. He was so funny. Always, you know, messing with people, you know, trying to make them laugh. And the band, I mean, I didn't realize until the second time I was with them in Milwaukee at the end of '77, I literally tape recorded an interview with all 5 band members, which is like, I think that's the only interview that exists from all 5 on their first tour. And at the end of it, Bon decided he was, you know, bored and he wanted to leave. And you could hear at the end, it's so sweet how every single one of them begs Bon to stay in the room.
So Bon was
Bon.
Bon.
Come on, Bon. You know, like the party's over. As soon as Bon gets up and leaves, that's it. We're all going back to the hotel.
So was Bon Scott? Was he kind of the difficult one then at times in that regard?
Oh God, no.
Okay.
No, he was, you know, the guy that, and Brian's a lot like this too, but Bon would go out at the end of the night, you know, and party with the audience or party with the roadies or, you know, I mean, he was every man's man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
He his lyrics, you know, he knew what it was like. I mean, you know, no fun waiting around to be a millionaire and, you know, it's a long way to the top. When I met them, they were broke.
Yeah, they were so broke you couldn't even pay attention.
Exactly, and I told them the night I met them, literally, talk about being, you know, psychic, and people have actually said this, what, was she psychic? And I'm like, well, you know, you can kiss my, you know what?
Yeah.
Because I complimented the band, you know, I was in shock after I saw them. I mean, when they played, you know, in front of me, that was it. My life it's done. We're turning a corner now, and you're never going back. And so I was freaked out. I thought they were the best band I had ever seen in my entire life.
Well, there's not many that are better, to be honest with you. I mean, you know, when you think of rock and roll, and especially when you're thinking of that genre of that time, there's Led Zeppelin, there's AC/DC, there's The Who, there's the Rolling Stones, and maybe a few others, but that's really it. If there's a Mount Rushmore of rock and roll at that point, it'd be those 4 bands.
Exactly, yes. When I saw them, and as I said, I'd seen a lot of bands up to that point, I wrote in my book that they made rock and roll sound like they had invented it.
Yeah. Well, they were different. They were a blues blues-based hard rock band.
Right. Very blues.
That when they played, though, you had a feeling that they've lived those lyrics.
Oh, they did. I mean, Bon wrote about his life, just like the way I write. Bon wrote everything came from his life.
Mm-hmm.
Everything.
So he didn't have the easiest life in the world, is what you're saying. He struggled.
Well, no. I mean, they, like I said, when I first met them, they were broke. I mean, they, were riding around in a station wagon. They got to open for KISS for 6 dates in December, I believe, or January of the next year. I'd have to look it up. It might be January, but Angus made a joke about when they arrived at the venue in a station wagon, they weren't going to let them in. Because they're like, you're opening for KISS, and they're like, yeah, we are. And they're no, you can't be. And so that night that I met them, I literally said to them, I said, someday you will be as big as the Rolling Stones.
Yeah, and you weren't wrong, and you weren't wrong at all.
It just flew out of my. I didn't even really think about that band before I said it. It just kind of flew out of my mouth. Mm-hmm. And the funniest part, and the most prophetic of all, is Angus is sitting on a couch, and I'm standing in front of him. And he pulls his shoe off, he sticks his foot up in the air toward my face, and says, "Oh, does that mean I can buy me some new socks then?" And I'm like, "Yeah, Angus, someday you'll be able to buy new socks."
So it sounds like the band wasn't quite believing you at that moment.
They knew they were going to be successful, but I don't think they realized either that they were going to be as huge. I mean, no, how could you?
Yeah.
I mean, it was so exciting when Highway to Hell came out. That was a big turning point for them.
Yeah.
And then, because after, let's say, okay, I saw them in August and December of '77. They came out with, Let There Be Rock had already been out. Mm-hmm. So, but nobody really listened to it. They didn't really play it over here very much.
Yeah, and
so
that's a great album, by the way. Great album, top to bottom.
Oh, God, incredible. But after I had met them, then they went down to Australia and wrote Power Age. And when that came out, that's when they started getting more airplay.
Okay.
But they played... it took me 7 years when I first wrote the book. I broke it down literally week by week. It took me 7 years before I found a 2-week break for them.
Wow. That's
how hard they worked.
That's a road crew right there. That's a road band. That is a performing, working it hard band. Very blue collar.
The hardest.
Yeah.
I mean, they paid their dues. As
well, what's
Bon
amazing
said.
is you have this masterpiece of an album, Let There Be Rock, that today, it's everywhere, and of course it's a huge album, and a lot of people look back at Let There Be Rock as maybe one of the almost perfect albums out there. It's amazing to think that that album in the beginning didn't get that much attention.
Oh, no, not at all. I had never heard of them. I had never heard their music, and I, like I said, I went to concerts constantly.
Yeah.
So, but we didn't have, being connected like we are today.
Yeah, had there been an internet back then, let's just say if there was an internet, do you think it would have changed them in some ways, or do you think it would have made their success quicker? How do you think that would have influenced back then the music landscape?
I think that they would have become huge, within months.
Yeah.
Instead of years.
Yeah,
because they did work a long time.
But the argument would be, would they have understood it and enjoyed it and really, the fruits of their labor? Because if you're successful, that's successful in months rather than years. How do you truly appreciate the road to this success when it happens so quick?
Oh, yeah, and you don't. And that's why, AC/DC is one of the few bands out there that keep their concert ticket prices in a normal range for people, because they remember when they, how hard it was to get $100 together to buy something.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about them the most, is that they have never forgotten where they came from, what it was like, and what it's like for your life, not just theirs.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Every time I've seen an AC/DC show, it's always been on the, I shouldn't say cheap scale, but inexpensive. I know I saw Def Leppard, and they were way out in the stratosphere compared to the ticket price of the AC/DC show. And of course, it's AC/DC. Now, when you have writing about the band and knowing the band so well, our modern, in a lot of ways, for guys like me that really idolized AC/DC, that kind of music, the day the music died for us is when Bon Scott died.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
really, that was hard. I mean, it really changed a lot of things. Do you obviously you remember that because you're close to Bon, but what was that like for the band to lose such a front man?
I think it happened so fast and it was so unexpected that I know in the beginning they were not going to continue because they were devastated. Like I said, they loved Bon. They looked up to Bon. You know, Bon was 9 years older than Angus. When he joined the band, they called him the old man, which, was hilarious because he was like, 29 or something. But, so it's just, but yeah, I mean, God, I forgot where I was going with this now sorry.
Well, that's all good.
We were talking, pardon?
That's all good, Susan. I was kind of thinking, what was the impact like? I know that they almost hung it up after Bon did pass away.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry. They when they went to his funeral in Fremantle, Australia, that happened on March 1st of 1980. Bon's father had a talk with Malcolm and told him, "You can't quit. You can't. Bon would not want you to quit." And I think just by knowing him, I wasn't like his best buddy, but I did get to hang out with him many times, and I think he would have been devastated if they would have quit.
Yeah. Well, the world would have been poorer for it. I mean, look at the music that they put out since. I mean, Back in Black. Think about that. I mean, think about that comeback. How many bands, though, when you think about it, can come back after losing not just their lead singer, but the iconic lead singer, the guy that was the driving force? It's kind of like, and I don't, we discussed this, Rush. I mean, I could take him or leave him. I mean, I don't mind Rush at all. But now that Neil Peart's gone behind drums, that was the driving force of that band. How do they continue? How do they keep going? That must have been the same thing for AC/DC. How do we keep going?
Well, what's interesting in that fact is that it was only because of Malcolm and Angus, because it was, their band and their vision, and Bon, was their brother. But it ended up being therapeutic for them to finish the album that they'd already started in London. And it, I know that it devastated the entire band, but in some ways, I wish that they would have had a break for a while, but in other ways, like Angus said, it saved us to keep working. Yeah,
you got to keep going. You got to persevere.
It took its toll, though, because if you really look at the history of the band, this happened in 1980, they went on with Back in Black, and then For Those About to Rock, and Phil, kind of went off the deep end for a while.
Yep.
And then Malcolm, within 2 years, had to take time off the road to quit drinking.
Yeah.
And they were hurting.
Yeah, they face their personal demons right along with everything else. Just like anyone else, they have their own issues.
Yeah. Well, and when you think about it too, at the timing of his death was right when they were playing Highway to Hell. And I think it's Touch Too Much was on the radio. So they were just starting to get that momentum of, oh my God, who are these guys? And they're really drawing, they're selling out shows, and this album is a hit now. And then, Pon's there, and then he's gone, and Brian's there.
Well,
and if they wouldn't have had such an incredibly strong album, that could have changed things.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with you. And what's kind of sad, though, is you mentioned that he had passed away right during the Highway to Hell. Was breaking loose. It was big here. Did Bon ever really get to enjoy the success, or was it cut short for him?
It was really not that they weren't profiting by the time Highway to Hell came out, but at the time of his death, because he'd been in the Valentines in the 60s, and then the band Fraternity in the 70s. He had been in 3 bands by the time he got into AC/DC, and he was almost killed in a motorcycle accident years before that. So when he died, he had literally been on tour for 13 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that is a run. That is a long time. And he did release a lot of good music. It's not like there is not a whole catalog of Bon Scott music out there.
Oh, yeah. No, he worked hard, but I know, it's crazy because when I saw them in October of 79, which would be the last time I saw him alive, I didn't go. I went backstage for a little bit with my friend Barry, but I didn't want to go hang out with the band because I knew they were exhausted. And they were going to go back home for the holidays and right into London to start the new album. So I told Barry, I said, give them all a big hug from me, and I'll catch you the next time. Be safe, have happy holiday. And I didn't choose to talk to them because I knew they were just beyond exhausted.
Yeah. And did that bother you a little bit? Looking back?
Oh,
it had to have, because you weren't just a journalist. You were close with these people. You were invested. You knew them. You saw them during their formative years. So where were you when you got that news that Bon had passed away?
Oh God, it was awful because my mother was dying of cancer.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Susan. I'm sorry about that. Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, she passed 6 weeks after Bon. But I was on my way up to the hospital on East Washington Drive back in Madison, and say hey to all my peeps back there, especially Hans, who's listening. I was on my way to the hospital to pick my mom up because they were going to let her come home for the weekend, which ended up being like the last weekend she was able to do that. And I was blasting a song on the radio of AC/DC because Highway to Hell was, climbing the charts. Everybody was excited, happy. Everything was perfect, it seemed, in that world. Not in my personal life, of course, but I was so proud of those guys. I was so like, oh my God, this is really happening. This is really, really going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'm at the end of the song, the DJ came over the air and he said, and that's in tribute to the late Bon Scott, who was found inside a car, or the back seat of a car in London, England this morning. And I just, oh my God, I had to pull off the side to the road, and there was no way to confirm it. There's no internet. There's no CNN. So it was horrible. I actually found a payphone and called my boyfriend and said, please find out. Turn the TV on, the radio on, whatever you got, because I've got to go pick Mom up. And I get up to, and this is how cool my mom was. When I lived with her for a while after my first marriage fell apart, and she took a lot of calls from Barry, who would call me on the landline at the house, so Mom talked to him several times. And the night they played Sin City on Midnight Special, my mom and I watched it together.
Wow.
And she was so proud. I said, those are my friends, Mom. What do you think? And she's like, oh, they're good, It was very sweet. And but I walked in trying to act like nothing was wrong, and she knew something was wrong with me, and she says, I am not leaving until you sit down and tell me what's wrong with you. And I sat down and I looked at her and I just lost it. I told her about Bon, and she cried too, and we both cried, and just, she comforted me, and 6 weeks later she was gone.
I was going to say, think about, your mom, being a mom right to the bitter end, facing her own problems with cancer, and she still took that moment to care what's going on in her daughter's life. That speaks volumes to her character. Of who she must have been.
She loved music, and she loved the band. When she saw them on TV, she was, you're right, they are really good. And I said, I told you, they're really special.
Told you so, Mom. Look, they're great.
Yep, she knew it. She knew it.
Yeah. Now, after he'd passed away, and it was confirmed that he had passed away, of course, that's when you know we all thought, if you look back in music history, all the journalists, a lot of the music outlets, is how is this band? They're done. They were writing them off. You're right. They were starting to write this band off. Like, okay, nobody's come back from a blow like this, and they wouldn't fault them for not coming back.
Right. Oh, no, it would be expected in a lot of circumstances, but knowing them and knowing the work ethic, especially with Malcolm and Angus. Malcolm was the boss man, the decision maker, the engine. You know, I knew he would continue no matter what, but it wasn't because it didn't hurt them.
Well, but creators, you're right. Creators got to create. Artists got to be artists, and so that wouldn't, it sounds like they had enough fortitude to persevere, and the love and the need to. It was probably a lot of it was the need to keep going because they need that outlet. They need that musical outlet.
Well, and personally, when I listen to Back in Black, I can hear the pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're playing their hearts out.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
How did
they're 1,000%?
But I couldn't imagine being a Brian Johnson, stepping into those giant shoes, right? Because we're not talking about just a singer. We're talking about Bon Scott,
an icon,
icon of music. I could only imagine what it must have been like for him. And what was your first thoughts hearing Brian Johnson on vocals?
Well, it's hard to believe, but when Back in Black came out in July of 1980, I knew they were coming to Madison in September. I was mourning that. I was mourning my mother's death. I did not hear Back in Black. Every time a song would start on the radio, I'd turn it off because I didn't want to hear them with someone else unless I saw it.
Yeah.
I just couldn't.
Yeah.
I just didn't. I just couldn't. And so I went to the Coliseum. It was September 14th of 1980, Back in Black tour. I was backstage. Angus introduced me to his wife, Ellen. They had gotten married not long before that. Bon was there, I think it was January of 1980. And I met Brian, and he was, super polite, very quiet, very just, not saying much. That he's way more comical and animated than that. But I know he was scared, but he was doing great. And so they went on stage, and I had not heard any of the new album. So I'm backstage about 20 feet behind Phil Rudd, stage right. And the lights go down, and the audience, starts screaming. And all of a sudden, this bell starts chiming.
Ah, for Hell's Bells, I would imagine.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And it's, the big bells coming down, there's a spotlight on it, and they launched into that song, and Brian Johnson stepped out there on the stage, and he started belting out Hell's Bells, and tears just ran down my face, and I stood there, and I knew Bon was there, and I just said to myself, they're going to be just fine.
You had to have been skeptical, though. I mean, you kind of touched on it a little bit, but were you nervous and skeptical at the same time?
Oh, very. Very. You're going to step into Bon shoes?
Right? How dare you?
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yeah, and the great thing, I mean, but that's another thing about synchronicity, and you'll read that in the story of AC/DC, Let There Be Rock, of how Bon actually met Brian in England when Bon was in fraternity and Brian was in Geordie.
Wow. So they did at least pass and know each other, at least in a passing way.
A little bit, yes. Bon actually saw Brian perform, and Brian had an appendicitis attack and collapsed at the end of the show, like the James Brown thing, and Bon thought it was part of the act. So he loved it.
Yeah.
And he told the band at some point, he said, if you ever have to replace me, that you got to get the guy in Geordie.
Oh,
amazing.
wow. Now that is definitely a seal of approval coming from Bond. So, I mean, it happened. Again, synchronicity.
It did, but
weird
it didn't
things.
happen that way. They didn't remember that, and a fan, I believe, what I found was a fan in Ohio sent a tape cassette of Geordie to AC/DC's management and said, "You got to audition this guy."
Yeah, and the rest is history, I suppose.
And when Brian, the best part is that when Brian got the call, he hung up because they thought one of his friends was pranking him. So he literally did. He literally hung up on him.
Yeah. Well, I would think so too. If I'd be in that same way, like, yeah, whatever, buddy, and then hang up the phone. That must have taken a little bit for it to sink in that this is real, I would imagine, for Brian.
Oh, very much. He didn't even have the money. He was scraping by with the wife and 2 kids, working in a place that put vinyl roofs on cars. He did. I think he had a business because he had a business card like that, and he went to London. And again, another funny thing, there's a pool table on the bottom floor of this place. So Brian's playing pool with the roadies thinking, well, they'll come and get me, right?
Yeah.
Because that's the way he is. It's not like, I'm Brian Johnson. He's never like that. And so he's playing pool, and finally, like, I think it was Malcolm came down the stairs, and he was griping about the singer that stood him up. and Brian looks up and goes, was I supposed to go upstairs? He didn't know. He was supposed to go upstairs in an audition. Nobody came and told him that.
Wow.
So he was playing pool.
Yeah. He was expecting something completely different. Yeah.
So, and being Brian, which I like, if you had to find somebody similar to Bond, he would be the only person because he's kind, he's humble, he's down to earth, he's hilariously funny.
They've always struck me as a blue collar sorry about that. A blue collar band where they work. I mean, they work. They work hard, and
they party hard, and they all drank hard. Except Angus, he got drunk, I believe, twice, and it made him sick so much that he never drank.
Yeah. He let others do that for him. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, you've written more than just about AC/DC. You've also shifted gear. Let's shift gears here a little bit. We're going to go into country music, and you wrote Family Tradition, which, of course, is Hank Williams.
Yeah,
what was
Hank Jr. and Hank 3.
Yeah, it was the family, of course. You covered all 3 of them. What was that like? Was that tough to cover, the Hank Williams story, the family of Hank Williams?
Geez, how do I put this? That book just about killed me in a lot of different ways. That was one of the hardest things I've ever done, and it was amazing, and it was I'm very proud of it. It is the only book on all 3 Hanks, and I was blessed with spending 2 days with Hank 3, the grandson of Hank Sr.
I have met, full disclosure, I've met Hank 3, and he's a bit of a wild man.
Oh, yeah, he's actually a bit of a softy once you get to talk to him, but he's scary. Definitely scary.
Yeah.
He looks at you like, don't look at me kind of, and it was funny because I had a friend up in Wisconsin, Mickey, if you're listening. It was his idea. I was looking for a new project, and I had an editor that was interested, and he suggested that I write a book about Hank 3, and I'm like, Hank 3, who's that? I didn't know, honestly. This was years ago. This was like, 10 years ago now. And so I looked into it, but there was no way I could tell his story without telling his dad's and his grandfather's.
Yeah, because there's definitely a set lineage there that leads to him.
And things repeat again. This repeating of things like, okay, Hank never grew up with a father because he was in the hospital all the time from PTSD. Really, is what it would be today. So he didn't grow up with a father. When Hank Jr. was 3, Hank Sr. died. So he lost his father at 3. Yeah. And then Hank 3 when he was 3 years old, his father and mother divorced.
Oh, wow. So a lot of
So
tragedy.
none of them grew up with a father.
So how do you think, getting to know them, how did that influence their music and their style? Because Hank 3 is completely different than Hank Williams Jr. in their music style. I mean, night and day.
Oh, definitely. But they're still both, they still both have the Williams attitude, you know, of like, don't mess with me, and I will play what I want, thank you.
Well, what was it like? I guess getting back to it, what was it like hanging around with Hank 3? He was a softie once you got to know him, but was it hard getting through that exterior shell?
Well, again, the synchronicity of my life is that my friend who suggested I write the book said, you know, Hank 3's on MySpace. You should email him. He answers people. And I thought, that's not going to happen. But I emailed him, and I had the story of AC/DC Let There Be Rock under my belt, and that was actually my picture on MySpace as the cover of the book. Well, Hank 3 is a huge AC/DC fan.
Gotcha.
So within 20 minutes, I get an email back from Hank 3 saying, yeah, I'd love to talk to you. I got a story to tell. I want somebody to take it, you know, to be honest with it. And you're going to be hearing from my manager within an hour. And then his manager called me. And she said to me, I don't know what's going on here because he's turned down like 12 authors already. He won't cooperate. He wants you to tell his story. And I said, okay. You know, I mean, my editor was
no
thrilled.
pressure, Susan. No pressure at all.
No, none at all, you know. So he tells me, and I find out, like, this was a week after I got poisoned at Bobby Mackey's in Kentucky on a ghost adventure.
Yeah.
That's in the book, too.
Yeah, that is in the book, and that's worth the read right there, by the way.
Yeah, that's, you know, it was bad. And so I was a little shaky at the time, and because I had just gotten over that, of whatever that was, that I ended up in the ER. But what happened was I flew down to Nashville, and I'm thinking, you know, he's a Hank Williams III. There's mansions, there's cars, there's probably going to be a limo at the airport.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just thinking big, you know, guitars shaped like pool, you know, or pools shaped like guitars, you know, that sort of thing. And I get to the airport, and of course he doesn't come in because he's Hank 3. Like, why should he, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm standing there, and I think I texted him, you know, I landed, got my bag, and he calls me, and he's like, come outside. This is my third time around the circle. And I go outside, and this guy, you know, and you know what he looks like, too. So he's got this look about him.
Yeah.
And he pulls up in this old pickup truck, and he jumps out, runs around, you know, says hello, grabs my bag, puts it in the back, opens the door, gets in. I get in the truck with him. He has to put the seatbelt on me because it's broken. and I, you know, I'm like in the truck with Hank 3 and me. That's it.
In this broken down pickup truck, or this older pickup truck.
You know, it was just not very fancy.
And you're expecting limousines and caviar wishes and all those wonderful things that come with money. And he pulls up in a 1977 Ford.
Pretty much, and he took me to my hotel, and we took my bag up. It was so funny because I grew up on Hank Williams music because of the jukebox. My grandmother loved him. I grew up on that. I grew up on all that lore of, you know, Patsy Cline and everybody. I love that music, and to be even in his presence was like mind-blowing to me. And so he comes up to my room with me to make sure it's a cool room. He wants to see it.
Yeah.
And then he's like sits down on one of the beds, and he kind of bounces up and down and goes, well, this isn't bad. This is pretty comfortable. And I'm like looking at him going, oh my God, what am I going to do? And he goes, well, I got some time, so you want to work? And I said, well, hell yeah. And he says, let's go then. And I grabbed a purse and a toothbrush and, you know, a couple of things, and we got back in the truck, and we went out to his haunted ranch house outside of Nashville. And
is it really haunted, by the way?
Oh, big time, yeah.
Okay.
To the point of one of the band members left in the middle of the night, will not sleep there ever again.
Ooh, that adds a nice new dimension to the story. So there you are at the haunted location.
Oh, no, there was... Yeah, no, he told me all about that because I told him that I had just gotten poisoned at Bobby Mackey's because I was a little shaky.
Yeah.
I really was. I wasn't feeling very good. And so he takes me to this house, and every square inch of it is covered with stuff. Like pictures, paintings of Hank and all the, just all the family. And, I mean, it was unbelievable. The posters, the gifts that were given to him. Every square inch of the place was filled. And then in the front part of the living room was a motorcycle with a fake dead gray alien laying across the back of it.
Well, that's not strange at all.
No. And then as he sat on a bar stool type chair and I sat on a normal chair, so I was looking up at him, we had the tape recorder. The first session was 4 hours. The next day it was 5. Mm-hmm. But as he's talking to me, over the top of his head is an oil painting of Hank Sr. staring at me.
Wow.
And so in and out of that, like I, used the bathroom and literally like pinch myself to the point of pain, saying, this is real. This is real. You're really doing this.
Did you ever stop and say, how did I get myself into this?
Oh, no. I mean, this is true.
Yeah.
My blood name is Williams.
Okay.
My dad grew up with his stepfather's last name, which we used. Mm-hmm. I'm of Williams by blood, and I've always said, you're going to find out that I'm related to Hank. It's going to happen sooner or later. So I already had this bond, and when I saw that Your Cheating Heart as a kid, I didn't know that Hank was dead, for one thing. And he dies in the movie, of course, because he died at 29. But his wife, Audrey, was the first Sharon Osbourne of her time, if you will.
Oh, yeah. She put up with a lot, didn't she?
Well, she created a lot.
Yeah.
She made him go back to Nashville when he got turned down. She suggested he wear the clothes, when he started having the custom-made suits. And then his mother was like the first stage mother, Lily. She took him to his gigs. He started on the radio at 14 years old.
Oh, wow. I did not know that was that young. They started.
Oh, yeah. He wrote the first song he wrote was in grade school called Backache Blues.
Huh.
Because he was born with spina bifida, which left a hole in his spine, and he had horrible back pain.
Yeah.
His entire life.
I had no idea about that with Hank.
Yeah. So when I saw the movie, I was inspired by Audrey because I thought, well, I want to be the person that helps the star become the star.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be the star. I want to be the one that helped them get there. And Audrey, in every other book, God bless her, has not been written very favorably at all. Yeah. And I loved Audrey. I love Audrey. So I gave her finally her due in what she did. Every hit song he ever wrote was about her.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Looking at it now, I'm just kind of refreshing my memory in Hank, and she was a huge foundation of his life, and she did push him in that direction. And think about what she set now forth in country music as a whole. The suits and this and that all comes back to her and Hank, mainly her now because it's her idea of pioneering that look and that way of being.
Oh, she was way ahead of her time. And I got the biggest laugh, and you can imagine that Hank 3, he doesn't laugh a lot in public. He usually has a look like, he's annoyed by you, which I love. I totally love that. But when I told him that, I said, when I was a kid, when I was in like grade school, I saw Your Cheating Heart, and I left the theater that night wanting to be Audrey Williams.
Go ahead.
He just burst out laughing, and he goes, I never heard that one said before.
What was Hank? But what was Hank 3's relationship, or what is it at the time of the book, with his father, Hank Williams Jr.? I mean, an icon in his own right in country music.
Yeah, not good. They're not close.
And that's a shame.
It could be different now, but they weren't when I did the interview, and it makes me very sad because he loves his father, and I think he's very proud, too much pride. And Hank, when Hank Jr., when Hank Jr. associated himself with Kid Rock,
Yeah.
and started calling him his rebel son,
Yeah.
that really hurt Hank 3.
I could imagine, because he's only looking probably for acceptance from his own father.
Exactly. That's really
and
all
then,
he wanted.
Yeah, and then Kid Rock shows up. They're collaborating together, and if you listen to Hank 3's music, it's very punky, metalish, almost like a Kid Rockish stuff going on.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. No, he rocks. Oh my God, his band rocks.
So I could definitely see where that anger would come from, because there's nothing worse than rejection from your own.
Exactly, and again, he's never, because they divorced when he was only 3, he's never shared in the fortune of the Williams family.
Oh, really?
No, not at all.
He does not. Okay, I would have thought for sure he would have gotten some monetary royalties off.
No. No. Mm-mm. Nope, not a penny.
So he's kind of the bastard child, if you will, the Williams family. The black sheep maybe would be a better.
Well, and just not treated fairly.
Yeah.
Because he didn't get to grow up with that, and he's made all the money he's made. He's done it on his own, and he's an artist. He's a writer. He's a performer. He writes songs. He plays instruments, and he's an incredible person. But again, very proud, very. I'm not going to ask for help. I'm not going to because I'm doing fine. I don't need help, but I think that it wouldn't hurt. And of course, this is like a mom talking. I think that Hank Jr. should, give all his kids. He's got 5 kids altogether. They should all get an allowance, because they make a lot of money every year.
Yeah, they do. The Williams estate makes money every year, millions and millions of dollars, just royalties from Hank Williams. Even his songs are still making money today. Hank Williams Jr. was a megastar in his day. I mean, heck, if he released the album tomorrow, it'd probably go platinum, not a problem, because of who he is.
Right.
So I think you're absolutely correct on that one. It seems that Hank the Third was left out in the cold when all he wanted was acceptance. Now, when you were talking to him, that probably was pretty pronounced. That would be kind of pronounced, well, what would make him who he is, rather. Sorry, let me spit that out. That same struggle, but made him who he is in his musical talents. Why he took that different path.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally. But at this point now, in my opinion, it shouldn't have to be so hard for him. I know that he's helped support his mother for years. And I just think that it's time to spread out the pie a little bit more, because he deserves it.
Yeah, he does. He's a very talented guy, and
but he looks so much like Hank Sr. Like I said, during the 4 hours and then another 5 the next day, and that painting staring at me, sometimes I felt like I was talking to Hank Sr.
Yeah, I bet it was. I bet it was, because it is uncanny. They do look a lot alike.
Yeah.
Now, I'd be remiss if we didn't bring up Rock and Roll Fantasy, the book that it's your autobiography. It's you. It's how everything came to be for Susan Masino, and that is a must-read as well.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, it covers the first 3 years of my career, if you will, from 77 to 1980. Actually follows, AC/DC's rise up to Back in Black, and it covers, everybody: Ted Nugent, Kiss, Van Halen, Cheap Trick, Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Foghat. I had a great time.
Okay, what was Ted Nugent like? What's Uncle Ted like?
He was super. I did not know how smart that guy was. I mean, he can talk. He's a talker, and the time that I met him, he was very polite to me. Not at all like, hey, do you know who I am kind of guy.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. I actually became friends with his mom because his mom loved AC/DC. And she used to write Ma Nugent. She used to write a column in Circus or Cream.
Sure.
Ma Nugent, and I became friends with her because we would be backstage together.
So her son is the legendary, Ted Nugent, but yet she's a AC/DC fan.
Oh God, she loved AC/DC.
That's kind of funny. I'd be like, "Hey, Mom, I do music too, I know.
No. She was a wonderful lady. I have She sent me, it's in Rock and Roll Fantasy, although, you know, that's got to come out. It's not available anywhere, really, but I put in there the letter she sent me. It was so cute because the second page is a color picture of Ted on stage, and she signs her name, and then in parentheses, Ted's mom.
Ted's mom.
Yeah, she was an awesome lady.
Well, there's another little band you used to kick around with once in a while, Cheap Trick.
Oh
man, I love Cheap
work
Trick.
For them.
They are just they are a great band. Even today, I just saw them live a few years ago, and they really just still bring it.
Oh, they're so fun, and I saw them at the Stone Hearth for the first time, right before they started playing stadiums.
Yeah, because they're Midwest. I mean, they are a Midwest band.
Well, based in Rockford, their manager was in Madison, and actually I worked for their manager for a while and ran their fan club.
Well, that is kind of cool. Do tell. We got 5 minutes left. Lay it on me.
Oh, no, I used to do all their fan mail and without a computer. And I had, file cards and, label sheets like that. Mm-hmm. And I started answering people back. And Ken Adamany, their manager at the time, loved it so much that he gave me an official thing that said, Cheap Trick International with my name on the bottom. And I wrote notes back to the fans, and no one ever was doing that. Nobody was being personable like that.
Yeah.
And that's when I was in the office when Live at Budokan hit really big.
Yeah, because, man, I remember that.
Exciting.
Wow. Yeah, that must have been a lot of fun back in those days, especially back in those days, pre-internet, connecting with the fans and being able to have that relationship with the fan base and stuff like that. I mean, how did you end up working for Cheap Trick? Just because of your background in music journalism?
Well, believe it or not, I had worked at the paper, and I don't think he cared, actually. Ken, he needed somebody to deal with the fan mail because it was stacking up, and my ex-husband, John, played in a band called Punch, which was also managed by Ken Adamany.
Okay, so it kind of came around that way.
Yeah, that he was looking for somebody to come in that knew how to type, that could handle fan mail, and so that's what I did.
Man, do you miss those old days, Susan?
All the time.
Yeah, I bet you have had one heck of a life, and thank you for coming on the show with us and talking again with us. It's always a pleasure having you on. I need everyone to go on over to SusanMasino.com. That's where you can see what's going on. You can learn more about Susan. You can figure out, look at the books, order the books off Amazon, and you can even contact Susan. She will talk to you back if you're really nice. She really will.
And I'd like to mention, too, that I'll be on George Norrie, Coast to Coast AM, Monday night, February 3rd, from 3 to 5 a.m. Eastern Time. We're going to talk about the Curse of Buddy Holly.
Oh, very cool. When you're done with them, you got to come back to us and talk about the same thing. You know that, right?
I would love to.
Oh, because I'm going to hold you to that. Until next time, guys, take care of each other, love each other, and rock on.